Huge mazel tov again to the Zisman family. And it is really my honor to call up sister-in-law of the brides and rabbinical student, Jules Ilian, who will be giving the Dvar Torah this morning. And I just want to tell you a little bit about her. So she met at the University of Delaware, met Alex. They grew up, who grew up at Bethel. They both spent time serving the Jewish community in various leadership and internship kind of roles. After college, they moved to Pittsburgh, where she worked as a Jewish educator. She has spent the past 3 years studying at HUC JIR, which is the rabbinical school in the Reform movement in New York City, right? Is that right? Yes. During her first year studying in Jerusalem, Jules was an intern for the Alyssa Froman Social Change Fellowship through the New Israel Fund. She has served in various capacities as a rabbinic intern in Richmond, Virginia, Bates College, Maine, Pittsburgh, Fredericksburg, and is the incoming rabbinic intern at the Reform Temple in Forest Hills. And we are so much looking forward to hearing your words of Torah. Jules.
Thank you so much, Rabbi McDowell. Hi, Shabbat Shalom. So I want to start with a story. So this happened a few years ago. I entered Sarah's hospital room on a Tuesday morning. A room like every other hospital room, sterile walls, beeping machines, Sarah's personal affects haphazardly placed on the nightstand. And there was Sarah, sitting in her bed, her husband John beside her. They were watching something on the hospital TV, something that doesn't really matter. And I sat with Sarah and John for about an hour. We spoke about how Sarah's recovery was going, the antics of their young grandchildren, and the couple's hope that another fall was not imminent. We also spoke about the sterility of the hospital, the isolation that Sarah felt away from her home, from the couple's 2 cats, from her neighbors and friends. In the days right after her fall, Sarah had not felt up to receiving visitors. The hospital had felt especially lonely then. Sarah was poked and prodded by medical professionals who only wanted the best for her, but they were overworked with unmanageable caseloads. They had their own things to worry about. Sarah's injury and subsequent hospital stay made her feel that she had turned from this fierce individual to someone who was self-sufficient, to someone who needed care and needs for basic tasks, one of countless patients in a hospital. She felt that she'd lost herself. Sarah hated that she needed to rely on others. It was not in her nature. She took pride in her independence, and now, here she was, looking towards months of recovery, months of needing help for the most basic of life's tasks. Sarah admitted that she was equal parts embarrassed and frustrated. Then the conversation turned to John, her husband. John mentioned that when he first married Sarah, what had drawn him to her was her ability to always keep things organized, together. She was the person in their marriage who made things run smoothly. Bills, taxes, making sure birthday cards get sent out, the whole 9. Now their dynamic was changing. John needed to take over the tasks that had always belonged to Sarah, at least for now. At least until she felt better. In the weeks following, I saw John at synagogue. He was always distracted, always coming from a doctor's appointment or a rehab visit. He could not stay late to chat at Kiddush anymore with his friends. For John and Sarah, their world was narrower. In this week's double portion, Tazria and Metzora, it spells out for us what to do if someone is considered impure, either from childbirth or from skin disease. The answer to the first, from childbirth, is isolation, removal from anything considered pure or sanctified. In our parsha today, we read that from the time someone gives birth until 40 days if it's a boy that they deliver, or 60 if they deliver a girl, the person who has given birth is considered in a state of blood impurity, meaning she shall not touch any consecrated things nor enter the sanctuary until her period of purification is completed. And perhaps, for this new parent, a break from ritual obligation, aside from the obligations of circumcising her son, that is a relief. In the early days of parenthood, when everything is changing, this time where not only is she obligated, but forbidden from temple work, perhaps that's appreciated. Or perhaps it serves to drive her further from her community at a time when everything is changing, where she likely does not feel herself, her body is new and unfamiliar, and now Moses, as directed by God, is telling her that she is impure, that she has done this most natural thing and now she is impure. And even the idea of touching a sanctified object is abhorrent. What does this do for her own self-outlook? How does this impact her emotional state? How does this heal her soul? Following the laws of impurity from childbirth comes the laws of impurity from sarat, a skin disease often translated to be leprosy. There is great concern over what is to be done if someone presents with symptoms of body swelling, a rash, or discoloration, and it develops into a scaly affectation on the skin. First, find the priests, call them over. It's their ritual obligation now to transform from providers of sacrifice, from in charge of sacrifice, to dermatologists of sorts. Not so many words, perhaps. In Leviticus chapter 13, the text goes into explicit detail on what skin conditions make someone pure or impure, and how long they need to be isolated for. The text, for its age, is surprisingly clinical. Sick people become defined by their symptoms. It's all very pragmatic, but for a spiritual text, it seems to me to remove the spirit from the person. They're now a compounding bit of symptom. The concern over spreading illness, of course, is a practical one. In a time where we did not know the cause of illnesses or how to control the spread of disease, it was important to practice isolation with extra precaution. I would like to argue, though, that the text leaves much out, much for us to figure out. Most importantly, the humanity of the sick person and the role that their loved ones play in their care. The text so carefully outlines the priest roles, but never mentions the role of the support people. For those of us who have ever cared for someone who is ill, or perhaps we were sick ourselves, we know the essential role that community and family and friends play in healing. Spouses, parents, children, and dear friends become partners in the medical journey. The act of caring for a loved one is an essential role, one that is often given little credit. So, what does it mean to be a supportive partner? I feel that turning more to our text, we should turn to the story of Naomi and Ruth, which we'll soon be reading on Shavuot, which so beautifully exemplifies this relationship for us. Most of us are familiar with this story. Naomi has 2 married sons, both of whom have died. Considering her Moabite daughter-in-law's futures, Naomi urges them to return to their families of origin so they can be remarried and cared for. The first daughter-in-law, Orpah, after much debate and crying, decided to heed Naomi's request, while the second, Ruth, does not. Ruth famously declares, Do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus and more may the Lord do to me, if anything but death parts me from you. I've always been taken by the love and deep commitment that Ruth held for Naomi. Ruth exemplifies for us what it means to maintain true devotion, to hold lifelong love in the face of hardship. But in practical application, for those of us here today, what does that mean for us to hold love for someone in this way? To show devotion when our loved one is in need of support. In a 2019 NPR article titled, "How to Be a Better Caregiver When a Loved One Gets Sick," co-authored by John Henning Schumann, Mara Gordon, and Megan Keene, outline clear steps for how to show our loved ones support in their times of need. I was struck by 3 pieces of advice. The first one is to see the circumstances as they are, acknowledge them, and ask for help. Interestingly, this is the first piece of the law which the Torah gives us, to notice that someone has a condition and call the priest. Before we can support our loved ones, we must acknowledge the situation as a whole. I will admit it's easier said than done, to see our loved ones as they are, suffering or weak in ways they once were not. It can change our worldview. It can challenge us. But we know that if we want to help our loved ones to heal, to give them dignity, it's the first step on this journey. Our own denial limits our ability to care, and then we must ask for help. Next, the task feels simpler when broken down. Again, mirroring the Torah, which breaks down illness into weekly assessments of different symptoms, we can ourselves break down things into day, week, or hour, existing things in bubbles. We can make tasks smaller, evaluate, prioritize. What really matters? The last piece of advice is one which we do not get from the Torah. It is, don't tell your loved ones what to do. Ask about the quality of life they want and how to get them there. Our loved ones, much as they are capable and as often as they are able to, it must be the leader of their own care, their own healing journey. They are the ones who can tell us if it's a blessing or a burden to be relieved from their regular obligations. They can share their outlook, what brings them meaning, what brings them value. And then, in turn, we are given the opportunity to help be their best advocate. Now, after saying all of this, I want to acknowledge that most people in this room have, at one time or another, experienced being a caregiver to someone. Perhaps you had a partner or a spouse who had a child, and so you gave them water and you made sure they ate, and you fielded phone calls from family members, or perhaps a family member was sick in the hospital and you drove back and forth, consulted doctors and nurses about care, slept on uncomfortable couches so that you could be close by. For others still, you did the important work of caring for a loved one as they died. You spent sleepless nights worrying about their comfort. You grieved for them long before they were gone. You helped them with endless paperwork. This is what it's like to be a good partner, to take on the tasks so often left unnoticed, to see to the needs of our loved ones, to bring in community when it's lost. Although our Parsha tells us to isolate those who are impure, those of us who have ever loved someone that is sick or been loved by someone when we were sick, we know that isolation comes far too easily. When we find ourselves in hospitals away from those we love, when our energy diminishes, when we cannot do our previously tasks that brought us joy, when our immune systems are compromised and keeps others from bringing close to us, that's isolating. Not only does our healthcare system isolate those who are sick, it isolates loved ones and caregivers. Doing the work of caring in itself is a form of isolation. Suddenly, a person who we relied on is no longer able to help. Suddenly, our social circles are shrinking. So what does that mean for us? We need to ask for help, to advocate, and to support. As partners in health, we can help expand our partner's world. As a Jewish community, we can relieve the burden. We can offer our loved one to give our love, to give caregivers relief, to bring community, to break down walls of isolation, to prevent anyone from feeling that their illness or pregnancy or life circumstance has made them impure. Thank you. Shabbat shalom.